Thank you. It's a plum-pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege to be here.
I'm here with Miss Maybe Brown's baby boy.
Yes.
So I'm delighted to be here with you. I was so surprised. I just want to say thank you to Ed Blunt for making this connection. I surprised when he says, I got Les on the phone. What are you talking about? Are you talking about the Mr. Les Brown? He says, yeah, I do. And go figure. You guys go back a while.
Yeah, I knew Ed before he knew Ed. Okay, we go back quite a while. He was about 4 or 5. Yeah, but I heard a lot of great things about you, and I saw your video, and we are coming from the same space. So that's why he got us together. It's a divine appointment.
Amen. Amen to that. You know, I talk a lot about faith-based finance on our channel, which seems to be sometimes a very, I don't know why it is today, a controversial topic, and a lot of people don't want to mess or mix, you know, faith, or finance, or even politics. But I find it is a very appropriate thing to do because there's certain values and principles. When I hear you, I've heard you in my ear talking now for the last 23 years, talking about that all the time. It seems like you also have a way to preach without being preachy in the way you in the way you talk. Is there have you mixed that in the way you've delivered your message?
Well, one of the things I do when I train speakers, I let them know that their audience is inside of each audience. So you want to speak in a way that everybody can hear you, and you're not turn anybody off. You're not proselytizing. So that's why I would say my favorite book, you know.
Yeah.
And that could be the Kabbalah, the Torah, the Bible, any number of books, because I read a great deal. But what's important is the message that has universal appeal and is timeless, things that people can implement right now. And so, I mean, just like I was reading last night in the Kabbalion, and there's a line that says, the lips of the wise are sealed to the ears of the ignorant. You know? In Scripture, it says, don't cast pearls before swines, lest they turn and rend you. Same languaging approach, but different in terms of context. And so what's very important is that we become very knowledgeable about the audiences inside of each audience when we speak. And there are people that will, when I say my favorite book, they will come to me afterwards and say, that's my favorite book too.
Okay.
Or somebody will come up and say, what's your favorite book? And I will say, don't worry, you're going to hell anyhow, don't worry.
That's the signature laugh right there.
I'm so sorry, but you're going to hell, don't worry, I'll tell you later on. So I have a lot of fun with it, but it allows you to establish a level of connection. You cannot correct unless you connect. And so doing the due diligence on that audience and understanding what are the things that you can say in a way that will create an experience that will have them on the edge of their seats, as opposed to doing an information dump. You know, the speaking industry has been governed by the Dale Carnegie course for a long time. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them.
Okay.
And my approach is opposite of that. Never let what you want to say get in the way of what your audience needs to hear. So ask strategic questions before you show up, so that you know more about them than they expect you to know, and that you can create an experience strategically with your story and other stories, because how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. So when you speak, what we do is distract, dispute, and inspire. We distract them from their story, their self-explanatory style. We dismantle their current belief system based upon what we have experienced and how we relate that to them and what they're dealing with, and ignite a spirit of courage to begin to make a new decision about their lives. And as you are aware, we make decisions, and our decisions make us.
I find this pretty brilliant for you to bring all this stuff up, because for many people that need to be refreshed about Les Brown's story, you were deemed somebody that was dyslexic, you were mentally handicapped.
I was labeled educable, mentally retarded.
Educable.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That he can't learn. They call me DT, the dumb twin, because I have a twin brother. Yeah, and that stayed with me. And when I met Mr. Washington, who this gentleman, he taught me three main things that to this day serves me well. I was in his class waiting on a friend of mine named MacArthur Stevens, and he said, "I want you to go to board and work this problem out for me, young man." And I said, "Sir, I'm not one of your students." He said, "Go and do what I'm asking you to do anyhow." I said, "I can't do what you're asking me to do." And the other students started laughing, saying, "He's Leslie. He's got a twin brother, Wesley. Wesley is smart. He's DT." And he asked, "What's DT?" And they said, "He's the dumb twin." And they erupted in laughter. And I said, "I am, sir." And he came from behind his desk. He looked at me. He said, "Don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. Do you hear me?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He disrupted the vision that I had of myself and how I saw myself. And I wanted to be like him. I followed him. He was a guy that I loved how he dressed, always in shirt and tie, and I loved how eloquent that he was. And I've never known my birth mother or father until just a few months ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And so as a result, I followed him and wanted to be like him. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, because they were great orators, and Billy Graham. I always studied people who had great presentation skills. That has always been a fascination of mine.
What did you take away from your early studies of these speakers? And I'm going to get back to the strategic questions here in a second, but what did you take away from the people that inspired you? What caught your attention?
What caught me is that, one, you can transform people's lives and you don't know them. Complete strangers, based upon how you put your presentation together, and them seeing you in a light that they feel comfortable letting you into their minds, and you can take them to a place in themselves that they can't go by themselves, because you can't read the label if you're locked in the box. And so I spent time to study the mind. How is it that I'm meeting these people for the first time? And what is it that I can do to create an experience that will transform them? Three-dimensional storytelling, that we can expand their vision of themselves beyond their mental conditioning and their culture and the environment that they're in, and touch their hearts, because we're emotional people, and ignite their spirit where they have the courage to say, "I'm going to do something different with my life." That's to me is the most important things that we can do, because people are asking when they hear you speak, one-on-one, small groups, or large groups, who are you? What do you have? And why should I care? And so in the course of the presentation, when you address those things so that people feel comfortable, they trust you, they're willing to be transparent and allow you to come into their lives and speak to them and help them to begin to learn techniques and strategies on how to make the rest of their lives the best of their lives. Take them on that journey, that experience. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that once a man or woman's mind has been expanded with an idea, concept, or experience, it can never be satisfied to going back to where it was.
When you think about the audience that you're talking to really understand them, what are those, if you were to boil it down to maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 questions that you ask to really get to know that audience so you can deliver that, what's some of the questions you should ask from every audience before you speak to them?
When you look at yourself, look at the industry, look at where you're going and the goals that you want to achieve, and hopefully they're far beyond what you achieved last year. What radical change must you make in your culture, in your mindset, individually and collectively, and how you're showing up in your industry? Because people don't live life as it is. They live life as they are. So in order to do something you've never done, you've got to become someone you've never been. So what changes are you going to make that will allow you to begin to achieve these goals that you've set for yourself. You're in this place where Einstein said that the thinking that has brought me this far has created some problems that this thinking can't solve. And so now it's about going within. Now it's about self-awareness. Who are you really? Now, how did you get here? And what will it take for you to get from here to over here? This requires at another level a new set of skills that you don't have right now. So what is it you need to do so that you can upgrade yourself? You know, we have the computer. We have to do updates, okay, to update yourself. Robert Schuller said, we either expand or we are expendable.
You've been speaking now, what,
52 years.
52 years speaking. What were some of the early circumstances you had to maneuver early in your career to get you to start building a platform for yourself so people can start picking you out and hearing about you?
Well, when I first saw a infomercial with Tony Robbins, I said, I got a story too. You know, he had this infomercial called Personal Power. And in Gunther Rinker and those guys, they've spent millions of dollars promoting him around the world, that every hour you would see a Tony Robbins infomercial. So I sent them one of my DVDs, and they responded saying, you got an inspiring story, but you're black.
Dang.
And we don't believe that America's ready for a black
Wow, they straight up
speaker.
said like that.
Straight up. And so I sent them a letter back saying, thank you very much for reminding me that I'm black. I never would have known that if you hadn't told me. I said, I'll see you from the top. And so I decided that we were going to go forward, even though we did not have millions of dollars from an investor to get national and global attention. That part of what we do in training speakers. The goal is to make what you do in terms of your presentation so powerful, so impactful, that you cannot be ignored, that people would want to hear more of what it is that you share. And the word will go out that, hey, I heard this guy or I heard this young lady, and they really impacted my life. And so I just said, I'm coming in this space, and my goal is not to be a player. My goal is to be a dominant player up in here. Take no prisoners and eat the wounded. Yum, 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 yum.
So I'm hearing prejudice and racial bias. I'm hearing exposure because there wasn't a budget to get you out there. So those are the things you had to maneuver and change. What would you say also some of the things that haven't changed? It's some universal truths to getting your message out there, to leading a movement. What things haven't changed?
The prejudice.
That hasn't changed still.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Well, first of all, that's going to always be with us. Okay.
Yeah.
What's most important is not focusing on the things that are designed to hold you back and destroy your sense of self.
There you go.
What's most important is your focus on you. How are you going to deal with this? What am I going to do with this? That's what I'm always asking myself. This requires a new set of skills. How is it that I can become so impactful that a guy will say, you know what? I know he's black, but I don't give a damn about his paint job. He can help us make some money. So to me, life, it's not fair that birds eat worms, but they do.
Yeah.
So life is not fair, and it's very unfair. And so there are systems that are put in place. I mean, this is the name of the game. You are in a culture that you're treated less than, and you have barriers and various things systematically that are designed to hold you back.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to focus on the solution, to focus on, I'm going to get through this, having that mindset of being a no matter what person. No matter what you put in front of me, I'm going to find a way to get through this. That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity. It's something that if we focus on that, we focus on finding the solutions, then other things come out of that. People say opportunity knocks on every door. I don't believe that. I believe that opportunity stands by silently, waiting for you to recognize it. And so I'll never forget, this news host was interviewing me and said, I see the majority of your clients are white. Shouldn't you be talking to black people given their condition? I said, no. He said, why not? I said, black people aren't the ones that's putting systems together to hold people back like me. I said, when you feel inferior to someone, you do everything you can not to have to compete with them. I said, people who look like you need what I got. He turned red as a cherry in a glass of milk. He didn't expect that. I said, come on, man. When you know who you are, you welcome competition. You say, bring it on.
Yeah.
So everybody, I believe, they have their own stuff that they have to deal with. All of us do. And so we have to constantly realize that life is a fight for territory. And once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over. With all the stuff that's going on right now, it's been an unspoken conversation. But then in the last 4 years, they've been emboldened, the people of darkness, saying, we can come out now. It's safe. And so, but that calls for and demands that we step up.
I'm reminded of you getting your first DJ job. With,
Yes.
Banging on the door, Mr. Butterball there, and says, I'm ready. He says, we're not hiring. But not only did you eventually get hired, but when it's time for you to step in as a DJ, you already had your intro already prepared and ready to roll.
Absolutely. I teach that it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. But not only was I ready to do that show, when I started working, I became the host of the radio show. I became the music director, the production person, making the commercials, selling commercials. I believe that wherever you go, you want to develop at least a minimum of 4 to 5 competencies. You want to make yourself invaluable to that corporation, that business that you're working in. This is a time that you have to expand or you are expendable. That if you go work for any major corporation right now, they require that you know at least 5 different positions. So if someone does not come in, you can step in there and take over for them.
You're talking about the last, especially the 2 years that we've been through, 4 years. I want to talk about this, especially the 2 years, because a lot of people have been hurt from lockdowns and mandates and whatever case may have been through these last couple of years. A lot of people have been deemed essential, non-essential, restaurants closing because they literally just can't sell food because people aren't coming in. But you talk about people also, hey, I can get a government check, I can get an unemployment check, I can have some subsidies and some help. And I see that it's when we're out there and we're interviewing and talking to a lot of people, they want to find more dependency versus independency. Can you speak to that in terms of playing offense in this time?
That has been the liability of the kind of educational system that we have, where you measure people's intelligence not based upon their ability to think, but their ability to memorize. So when they put this together, formulated by corporations training people to get jobs, the journey of the broke, they didn't envision a Google. Kids can get information available at their fingertips. The encyclopedias, you hear people talk about encyclopedias, they go on. They go on over here. And so it's a different day. And so now, in this era, what the late Peter Drucker calls the era of the 3 C's, accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition, we have to work to stay ahead of technology. But there are certain areas that we're in that I think that is protected because of the fact we have a heart. No matter what a computer says to you, they've done studies with computers talking to people and a human being. We can tell the difference. And the reason we can tell the difference, when you speak from your heart, where your heart is, there your treasure is also. Who you are behind the words that you speak are much louder than the words that people actually hear. And so in the embodiment of those words that you speak, there's an energy, there's a passion, there are experiences that you've gone through, there are stories that people don't just hear with their ears, but they hear in their heart, that you're able to connect. Computers don't have a heart. And so right now, when we look at where people are, whose lives have been disrupted, well, disruptions calls for transformation to accommodate it. And so as long as we are continuing to expand our minds, living out of our imagination rather than our history, and putting ourselves in communities of collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships, because you can't make it by yourself, iron sharpening iron, and upgrading our skill set, because that as we look at ourselves, we're gonna do what Shula called peak to peak, P-E-A-K to P-E-E-K.
Wow.
You peak to peak. How much further can I go? So you're always pushing yourself. You're always challenging yourself in pursuit of that person that you know that's in you, the next greatest version of yourself, but you haven't quite got there yet.
Because you're the living embodiment. I mean, you're literally a living legend who's destroyed a lot of reasons why you shouldn't succeed, why you shouldn't get ahead. You know, there's people out there right now like, what am I supposed to do? They feel helpless. They feel isolated. They feel
But they
powerless.
don't feel that in a vacuum. See, we were born to succeed. You're made in the likeness and image of God. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yes, right.
We were born to succeed. We've been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth. But we've been programmed to fail. And so I say, particularly when I'm in church, even though we are made in the likeness and image of God and been given authority and dominion over everything on the face of the earth, we will never exercise authority and dominion over our lives until we exercise authority and dominion over what we are not. That we have bought into an image that has been sold to us. Dr. Carter G. Woodson said it best. He said, if you can determine what a man shall think, you never have to concern yourself with what he will do. He said, if you can make a man feel inferior, you never have to compel him to seek an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And if you can make a man feel justly an outcast, you never have to order him to go to the back door. He'll go without being told. And if there's no door, his very nature will demand one. So our goal and objective in helping people to begin to plug into this economy is to deal with the pandemic that we presently have, but also the virus of mediocrity, HIV, hood-infected virus, AIDS, addiction to incarceration, and death syndrome.
Powerful stuff. Wow. When you're thinking about the wealth gap in America, the income inequality, you've never been a person to say, well, who's going to hire me at this? You've always created your own economy. You've made money with a Republican president. You've made money with a Democratic president. Can you speak to how the person watching this video in this era, in this generation, can start closing this wealth gap instead of worrying about what's going on the outside? How can we be more specific what goes on the inside?
It never changes. That's timeless, that all philosophers agree on. It's about you. Adam, where are you? You know, people have to look at themselves. There was a point in my life I never forget when I got fired from radio. A friend of mine named Robert Boyd And he said, Les came to see me. He said, things aren't going to get better for you until you get better. Things are not going to improve in your life until you improve. Yes, they were wrong for firing you. Yes, you stood up for that couple, that Vietnam veteran that was beaten by the police. They shouldn't have done that to him. And they had the power to fire you. So the question now is, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay here and just be depressed and angry and tell anybody who's willing to listen to you what happened to you? Or are you going to do something different with your life? I just want to drop that question on you. And then he got up and left. And I had to ask myself, what am I going to do with this? And I decided to pay attention to what I often say. Opportunity doesn't knock on every door. Opportunity stands by silently, waiting for you to recognize it. I believe in angels. Shortly thereafter, the next day, a guy named Horace Perkins, a salesman at the radio station, came by the house and said, look, I got these petitions here. Sign your name right here. I said, what is this for? For you to run for state representative.
Wow.
I said, man, I don't know anything about politics. He said, neither do the people who run. He said, come on, man, sign here, and you'll be on the ballot.
Yeah.
He said, people love you.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is knock on the door and say, hey, this is Les Brown.
Yeah.
Remember me? I teach stand up for what you believe in because you can fall for anything. I'm still standing.
Yep.
He said, I guarantee you people will come out and vote for you. And they did.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of politics, it seems like America today versus being the United States of America, it seems like a very divided states of America. When we're looking at policies that could be changed, we're looking at things that could be improved. You've had money, you've had power. What are some of the things that the person today, because mid-year elections are coming here in November, next 6 months or so, and people just don't think that their vote counts. People think that there's voter fraud or their vote doesn't really matter because somebody's going to win anyway. What would you poke at that to remove any illusion whatsoever that people's involvement or lack of understanding of politics doesn't really matter in today's?
We have to continue to educate people on the reality that you can make a difference. Politics is a part of it, but it's not the absolute. That we have to be actively engaged in being current in terms of our knowledge and skills, because whoever's in the White House, it doesn't matter if you don't have the skill set and the mindset to turn adversity to your advantage or to find a way to get your piece of the pie. That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
That there's a big pie out here and everybody want a piece of it, but everybody's not going to get a piece of it because the road to life is straight and narrow, and few there be that find it, because few there be that are willing to do the inner work. Few there be that are willing to upgrade their skills and their knowledge. Few there be that will face rejections and no's day in and day out and decide it's not over until I win. That most people, they allow themselves to be broken. They will surrender. But you have got to have the kind of mindset, no matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. You're not going to stop me. I have a goal, I have a dream, and my stopping or giving up because of the failures, because of the rejections, that's a non-negotiable no. I'm coming at you from another angle, and I'm not going to stop till I get through.